Hello everyone, Rob Ainscough here. Today I'm going to go over an issue with Autogen disappearing, Autogen being the trees and buildings. The issue appears to be related to the target frame rate value equal to unlimited. So I'm going to go ahead and run a test flight here, and these are my graphic settings for that test flight. They're fairly high graphic settings, as you can see, and I have a slew of add-ons, Orbix, FTX Global, OpenLC, Vector, and a couple airports. The airport I'm at right now is from LLH Creations, and this is LFLI in France. I have another airport installed in the close vicinity. That's FSDT's Geneva, and that's LSGG. But let's go ahead and do a quick test flight here in the F-22. And as I said earlier, the TFR, which is target frame rate, is set to unlimited. I am running VSync, and my monitor is set to 30 Hertz. So as you can see here, that pause there was actually from the FSDT Geneva loading, airport loading. But as you can see, frame rate, it's fairly smooth. Unlimited tends to produce the smoothest frame rate, a lot less long frames. But we're going to go ahead and point the F-22 towards EGLL in England. I'm going to replicate this flight path for my testing here. So as you can see, the Autogen is still rendering, or I should say it's still there. You can still see the buildings, you can still see the trees. As we continue to head on a heading of 333-ish, altitudes around going to be between 3,000 to 6,000 feet or so, maybe 7,000 feet. I purposely set the speed to around 450 knots. It'll vary, obviously, somewhere between 400 and 500 knots, just to add additional load factor. I don't want to call this high-speed flying, but it's certainly faster than GA flying. And as you can notice off to the right there, you can actually see some of the Autogen trees slowly painting in, or I should say slowly batching in. And this problem is going to progressively get worse as the more we fly here. AG is still there right now, but it is beginning to thin, and or the batching of the AG, the drawing of the trees and buildings, is becoming more apparent. Normally, that would probably happen in a far distance, and for the most part would be unnoticeable. But when you start running into performance problems, like over here, we've already started to lose our building Autogen. It seems to have gone. We still have a few little trees here and there, but they are beginning to thin out. There should be a lot more trees. So as you can see, we are progressively losing our Autogen, trees and buildings. There should be buildings down in the valley there on the right, along with trees. There should be pretty much all trees everywhere. Almost everywhere, certainly in the dark patches. So this is the test with unlimited, and now after this test, I'll go ahead and actually, here's an external view. I'm running chase plane here. If you look at the terrain detail, it's not completely blurry, but that's not the high res, and you can actually see it trying to load the high res. So clearly the terrain and the Autogen system are falling behind. All right, so let's go back to LFLI and make some adjustments to our graphic settings. What we're going to change, let me see, is the TFR. We're going to change it from unlimited down to a target of 30. Leaving VSync on, hit OK. So that's our only change. It's just changing from unlimited to a target frame rate of 30. And I'm just going to bring up the P3D CFG here, and let's go ahead and find our FFTF value and the fiber frame time fraction value. As you can see here, I have it set to 0.33. This is the default value, but I just wanted to show you what the FFTF value was in this test flight. The FFTF value only comes into play when you have a TFR value set. So when you run unlimited, the FFTF value has no impact whatsoever. It's not used, or I should say it's probably the equivalent of 0.01 or something like that. So as you can see, we've got our target frame rate now set to 30, and the motion isn't quite as fluid. It's a little bit more, what's the word I want to use, stuttery. But stuttery really just means you're getting more long frames. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same flight path that I did with the previous test with the TFR equal to unlimited. And now we've got the TFR equal to 30, and let's see if our Autogen remains intact. Okay, so we're getting close to the point where we started losing Autogen rendering in the prior tests. So now we want to keep an eye on the trees and the buildings and see if we're running into a similar problem when we have the TFR equal to 30 and the FFTF value equal to 0.33. So far it looks pretty good. You can see the trees are being rendered, the buildings are being rendered. You can see off to the right here we have our buildings, we have our tree line, and I don't see any obvious batch loading of groups of trees and or buildings. They all seem to be loading in the fairly distant visual range, so it's not distracting. there's certainly more long frames when you have this value set. It can be reduced somewhat. We'll get into that later. But looks to me like if we want to keep the Autogen, you're going to have to move away from Unlimited. Of course, I'm flying at a fairly fast speed here, around 400 to 500 knots. If you're flying GA aircraft at much slower speeds, you could probably adjust the FFTF value down, because you have less of a requirement for the batching of Autogen. Okay, so it looks pretty good. So let's move over to, we're going to split screen here. This on the bottom is the TFR equal to Unlimited with VSync on. And as you can see, we're missing a lot of terrain. I mean, a lot of trees and buildings. The top half is TFR equals 30, VSync on, FFTF value of 0.33, and we have all our trees and buildings. Alright, so let's get back, we're back into actually prepared 3D version 4.3 here, and we're testing out a completely base installation, no add-ons at all, and this is actually running from a different computer, slightly lower screen resolution. It's a 2K resolution rather than 4K, but the graphic settings are all the same. The key graphic setting here is we're running Unlimited, and lighting is all the same as prior tests. The only real difference here is that we're not running any add-ons at all. So this is a clean installation of prepared 3D version 4.3. Okay, we're back in the sim. I just want to make sure that you see the version here. I blurred out my license, but there's the version 4.3.2.9. This is the official release version with no add-ons. So let's go ahead and run the same flight. This is again LFLI, and we're going to head in the direction of EGLL, which is about 333 degrees or so. And obviously the terrain is going to look quite a bit different since there are no add-ons. There's no Orbix FDX Global, no Orbix OpenLC, no Vector. So this is a base, simple, prepared 3D version 4.3. So we're trying to figure out what's going to happen to our Autogen. So far, the tiles in the Autogen appear to be rendering correctly. Let's slow it down a bit here. We're going a bit fast. My testing, I try to keep it between 400 and 500 knots and between the range of 3,000 and 6,000 or 3,000 and 7,000 feet, somewhere around there. Just to be consistent. The direction, the location is always the same. And the graphic settings are always the same. With the exception, of course, the TFR Unlimited versus a value. So again, this test is with Unlimited, and Autogen is still there. Clearly there's not as much Autogen, but if you look in the upper right there, you can see it start to fill in. Those are the trees, so it's already beginning to struggle. And again, this is a base no add-on installation of 4.3, and as you can see here, the trees are definitely starting to batch in, which to me is the same problem as we had when we had Orbix add-ons installed. So clearly it's not an issue specific to an add-on, but it appears to be an issue specific to the batching of Autogen and the Autogen trees and buildings when you have the TFR value set to unlimited. Alright, so as you can see here, we're kind of getting to the point now where the Autogen system is just almost completely gone. There's no trees, there's no buildings. So let's see what happens if we pause it, and let's see what happens and if the Autogen can catch up. Alright, so the sim is now paused. And let's take a look at our Autogen. And it is starting to paint in, as you can see, very, very slowly catching up. The problem is that if we get too far beyond the ability of the Autogen to catch up, we will essentially lose the Autogen completely, and it will require a scenery reload. Okay, so we're back in Prepared 3D version 4.2 this time, and I'm running 4.2 on again a different machine. It's graphic settings are the same. Running unlimited. The TFR is set to unlimited, and we're doing the same route, no add-ons, and we're trying to determine here if the issue is also present in version 4.2 of Prepared 3D. I know there were some users who were suggesting that perhaps something changed going from Prepared 3D version 4.2 to version 4.3. So that's why I'm running this test, just to see if there was any difference. And again, this is the exact same graphic settings as before, and the TFR target frame rate is set to unlimited, and VSync is on. Okay, so as you can see here, the Autogen is also batching in, and it's fairly visible that it's batching in. hasn't gotten completely out of sync yet, but you can certainly see the batches of trees rendering. So as you can see here, Prepared 3D version 4.2 has the same, I don't really call it an issue, but it has an issue with the Autogen, and right now you can definitely see that we're missing a lot of trees and buildings. They've pretty much all stopped for the bit. So Prepared 3D version 4.2 had nothing change. It seems to reflect this issue also. And again, I think it's just a matter of unlimited overloads, or I should say unlimited doesn't allow enough time for the fibers to go out and load the Autogen. That's why you see it coming up late and in big slow batches. And again, it's just another indication that this problem hasn't just been started in Prepared 3D version 3. It probably goes back to version 4.0 when the move to 64-bit and the enabling of the extremely dense and distant loading of Autogen. So it's not maybe new news. Many of this probably already figured this out a long time ago. It's just the limitations of how much Autogen can be loaded when operating at unlimited. If you switch back to a TFR value, a value that your system can handle, then your Autogen will stay loaded and remain loaded. And you won't run into this problem, as we can clearly see here. The Autogen, now the sim's paused, is coming up in batches, slow batches. Alright, so let's take a look at my version here. I've blurred out my license, but as you can see, the version is 4.2. And let's go ahead and bring up the graphic settings so you can see that they're the same, with the target frame rate set to unlimited and VSync on. Now these settings should be the same as all prior tests. Okay, so that concludes the 4.2 testing. Let's go back, and now we're going to cover a complete flight with all the add-ons loaded. In this case, this is Orbix Vector, and I'm going over the settings I have in Vector, and we're going to do a complete flight in Prepared 3D version 4.3 with all my add-ons loaded and using the TFR value equal to 31. and enabling VSync. For me, that seems to be the best compromise if I want to keep my Autogen. Set the target frame rate to 31 and set VSync on. So as you can see, everything appears to be rendering well with these particular settings. My Autogen is still there, my buildings are still there, and let's get a quick look at my graphic settings here. So there's the target frame rate set to 31, VSync is on, 4K res. Most of these settings are maxed out here with the exception of the Autogen building density is set to very dense. My lighting settings. My weather settings. Currently the weather is set to clear. I have no weather engine loading, but as you'll see later on in this flight, I do enable Hi-Fi's AS4, so you will see weather load a little bit later on. Now here I've just speeded up the post-production, speeded up the video, so reducing the length of time it takes to get this video done. But it's just basically showing you the entire flight, going from LF-LI to EG-LL. Now here I slow down just to show that I add the Hi-Fi AS4 weather. And as you can see, the weather's coming into play now, or visibility and clouds. And now I'll go ahead and I'll speed up the post-production here. And as you can see, all the Autogen is loading, the buildings are loading, and I'm zipping along here to EG-LL. Again, this is just a post-production edit just to reduce the time because I didn't want to do the entire flight or show the entire flight. I did do the entire flight and recorded it. This is not slew mode. This is just fast forwarding the video basically. Alright, so we're crossing the English Channel here, getting close to England. And here's England. Alright, so now we're turning towards EGL. And once I actually slow this video down, you'll see that we take quite a bit of a frame rate hit using the TFR value of 30 and the FFTF equal to 0.33. Okay, I'm trying to find the airport here. Alright, so there we are. Now we're back to standard time. I know it looks like everything in slow motion. Again, this is EGLL with the graphic settings, and I believe I'm landing at UK 2000's version, or it could be Aerosoft's version, I'm not sure. Anyway, it is a third-party vendor's airport, along with all the Orbix stuff installed as well. And there's quite a bit of Autogen tree and building density here. Primary purpose is to show you that I didn't lose any Autogen or the Autogen trees or buildings. They still rendered for the entire flight. And again, this was a flight where I used the target frame rate TFR equal to 31 and my VSync on, and the fiber frame value was FFTF value was set to 0.33. I did do several test flights reducing the FFTF value. I went down to 0.2. Also went down to 0.1, and those values helped a little bit with the frame rate, especially in the dense areas like this. However, when I did the entire flight, I did start to lose Autogen at anything below 0.33. So playing with that value really depends on your load, and you may even want to adjust it higher if you start losing Autogen. But 0.33 seems to work well for me, along with a TFR equal to 31 and VSync on. But it really, again, it depends on your add-ons, your load. You're going to have to manage your target frame rate and manage your FFTF value based on your add-ons and your graphic settings.